for joining us today on Live with Squacky. Our special guest today is Mike Paine, and Mike started doing voiceovers at 17 years old and network radio at 18 years old. He's a voiceover talent with over 30 years of experience and thousands of voiceovers heard worldwide. And he's also the program director for 2 radio stations. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Val. This is so much fun already.
Oh, we're so excited to finally talk to you. So Mike and I actually met through Twitter, and we've been kind of like supporting each other and retweeting and commenting, and just we've got this whole like Friday party thing happening on Twitter, which is so much fun. So we're really, really excited to have you on the show today. So we already talked for a second during my intro about your background. So tell us a little bit more about that and how you got started in voiceover and broadcasting. What was the thing that kind of got you started, that got you interested in voiceover to start?
Well, when I was little, about 8 or 9 years old with my big brother, my dad bought us one of those little mini tape recorders, not a mini tape recorder, but just one of those cassette recorders. And we played with it and pretended we were on the radio all the time. And from there, I thought, this is fun. I would love to do this for a living. And I would always just talk into the cassette player. And then when I was 17, I lived on my own. I was going to college in Texas, and I literally picked up the phone book, looked up video production services, and started cold calling A to Z. And
wow.
that was, back before internet. I'm old. So, in 1987, there was no internet. There was no text, tweet, nothing like that. So just picking up the phone book, calling people. I had no idea what a radio studio, production studio, nothing. I just thought, oh, I could do this. And it actually happened that a cable company in town wanted me to do voiceovers for them. So I went over there and did a few commercials for them. I still have them to this day, actually. I still have the audio and the video for them, the very first ones I ever did. And that was so much fun. And then that was it. I had to do this. I'm like, I have to do this the rest of my life. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's just, I did a restaurant, I did a copy shop, a photocopy, like a Kinko's type of place, and a couple other things. And then I did the local PBS fundraising drive. I did their audio for the prizes that they were auctioning off. So I did a lot of that. And this is, we're talking 17 here. And that was a good start. And then once I had that, I'm like, this is something I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Or I hoped I would, and I am so far. And then at 18, I get into broadcasting. I sold the program director of the heavy metal format my guitar because I couldn't play at all. And from then he's like, why don't you try doing radio? I know a guy down the hall that does top 40 and he needs a producer. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Not knowing a thing about radio, never seen a radio studio in my life. So I went to this guy and I go, okay, I'm your new producer. And he's like, who are you, kid? He's like, I'll give you 2 weeks audition, not unpaid. And if you work out, we'll give you the job. I'll give you the job. And I learned how to splice tape. I learned how to do bits. I learned how to record stuff, all literally on the fly. And I had no idea what I was doing. And and from there, I got that job. I was the producer of a national morning show, top 40 morning show at 17. And then I did part-time for the Heavy Metal Network, and then eventually left the production job to get a full-time opening at the Heavy Metal Network, which was heard nationwide, all over the country. It was a ton of fun. And then still doing commercials and voiceovers and stuff all during that time. And then after that, worked at various radio stations, in California and here in Chicago, where I'm at now. And I actually was a club DJ for a while too, little known fact. But then started getting back into radio. I did, let's see, I was a traffic reporter during all the same time from 99 till 2010, doing radio and TV traffic reports, and then programmed a couple of radio stations, still doing that today for the last 8 years. And I'm still doing voiceovers as well. So all of that, I'm out of breath already, but that's just kind of a little, a little Cliff Notes version of what I do and what I've done. So there you go.
Yeah, that's amazing, Mike. It sounds like a really awesome start to a career that's brought you to where you are today, which is so great. I mean, I know that it's really great when you find what you're good at and what you love at such a young age, and you're able to actually carry it through your whole life, and that's fantastic, because I think that a lot of people get to a certain point in their life and they're like, oh, this isn't really what I want to do. How am I going to get to what I really want to do? And you're doing what you really want to do, and that's really great. So
And I've
really
been
cool
doing it,
story.
been doing it since I was a kid. And I have to show you something really quick. This is when I was first the first 2 months I was on the air. I'll show you the picture and it'll say 1,000 words. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. I think you can see this. I think you can recognize who that is.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, this is me at 18 years old, and my very first interview was this guy, Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
That was a nuts thing. That it just because the other guy couldn't do it. It was just like a last second thing, and I was filling in for him. They're like, "Okay, you do the interview." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you nervous, or were you just like, oh, this is no big deal?
Well, it's kind of funny you ask that because I wasn't that nervous because I heard a horrid interview on the regular FM, the local FM station. He did a terrible interview with Ozzy, and I thought I can do that with my eyes closed. And
Yeah,
it just so happened it's like I'm a fan of Ozzy's stuff, so I knew what to ask him, and it was just pretty easy, and we just had fun. It was just a lot of fun. And there's this little tiny porthole window into this from outside of the studio, and the big muckety mucks at the record company were looking through, and here's this 18-year-old kid doing this interview, and they're like, "Who is this guy? How long has he been here? He looks like a kid." It's like, "Oh, I am a kid, but I love doing this stuff," and it kind of all took off from there.
that's really cool. Wow, that's such a big interview to start with. I mean, was he, I mean, I don't know that much about him. So he must have been pretty young then too, right?
It was almost 30 years ago. In December, it'll be 30 years since that happened. So yeah, he wasn't a kid, but he was a lot younger. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely younger. He looked a lot younger, obviously, than
Yeah.
he is now, of course.
Yeah.
So cool. That's a cool interview to start with.
Yeah.
Um, so marketing is such a big thing in this industry, and entertainment overall,
Mhm.
it's so huge. What do you do to market your voice that's been successful for you?
Well, believe it or not, I'm not on Instagram or Facebook yet. That might happen sometime, but I'm on Twitter. And I think the key is to have a balance between the constant barrage of nonstop marketing because people will turn off to that instantly. They'll know. You can't just be a paid advertisement. People get tired of seeing that a lot. You have to be to me, I think I'm doing it right. You have to be a real person. You have to actually respond to people. You have to actually talk to people like a real human being, like you do and like I do, and interact with people in not only in the industry but people from outside of the industry, and they have questions. For example, somebody was asking me the other day, how do you record your voice? How do on a message, they're like, how do you do this? How do I get into it? And I get asked a lot in private messages, how do you get into the voiceover industry? How should I do an audition? And it's something that it's not a shameful thing. It should be out there in the public. And I think that's kind of what you're doing with Live with Squacky, is getting people to know about this. Shouldn't be a big hidden secret. People should know about how to do this stuff and some of the resources. It shouldn't be a protected thing, not a secret
Right,
society. But
right.
I want to get a website. I have a SoundCloud page, but I'd like to get a website, I think, without spending a fortune and just having a website that doesn't work for me. I don't want to get all the bells and whistles and then have nothing happening with it. That'd be kind of disappointing.
Right. I think well, what I use is Wix.com, and
Hmm.
um I mean, it's definitely been an interesting, process of creating your own website and things like that. I know a
Hmm.
lot of people use other sites, and I've just really liked the ability to be able to change things when I want to, but I remember setting it up at first, and even though they have really great templates and things like that that you can use, it took a long time, like a good amount of hours to get it set up the way I wanted it. And then I had to
Hmm.
have like a graphic designer go in and be like, oh, let's fix this for you, Val. And so it's definitely something that's pretty easy to get started if you're willing to, keep it up yourself. I think
Hmm.
for me, like I said, what was what was really important to me with my company website and my personal voice actress website was to have the ability to go in and change things when I wanted to. I didn't want to have to be reliant on someone else to work on their time schedule and say, like, I need this done. When can you get it done? A week from now, I actually need it done like yesterday. You know what I mean? So like that's just kind of like the type of person I am. So that is definitely something for you to consider when you decide to do a website. Is it something you want to maintain yourself, or is it something you want to have someone else manage for you? And what's your timetable look like? And I would also say just keep it really simple. Like
Right.
don't overcomplicate it. Make it look good, make it look visually appealing, but just make it super easy without a lot of like other stuff, because I think anytime that you get too many things on your site, people just get like confused about it, and then they're like, I don't have time to click everywhere. I just want to know, like, how do I book this guy for
Right.
voiceover, for example,
Who
that's
are
just
you?
my
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, who are you? What do you do? Yeah.
Some
How do I
demos.
contact
Yeah.
you? And your demos for
Right.
sure. Yeah. But I think that's a good route to go. I think a lot of people are doing it themselves, but I think a lot of people have a graphic designer kind of come in and tweak it. Like, I'm not a graphic artist, so I can't, design my own logo and stuff like that. I had to have someone do all of that for me, and then just kind of go in. Usually, I think graphic designers don't charge a billion dollars for to go in and say, okay, you've already designed your website. Let me just like fix this for you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That's
Hmm.
that's kind of like a more inexpensive way to go about doing it than having a graphic designer actually like, or a web designer, I should say. you know, it's a little cheaper than having a web designer go in and actually do the whole thing for you. You set it up yourself, and then they just go
Sure.
in and kind of fix it for you. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
something to take into consideration. But I think that's really important what you said, is the balance between being real and being a promoter per se. In other words, you have to, like you said, respond to what people tweet at you, for example, using Twitter in particular, because that's what you use,
Right.
and all the other social media platforms have their, positive and negative sides to them. But it is a good idea, I think, to sometimes just choose one and go with it and say, okay, I'm going to be on Twitter. This is where I'm going to put my focus, and this is who I'm going to be, and get my reputation out there.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Um, so what types of trainings have you been to, or do you plan to go to improve your voiceover career?
I believe it or not, I haven't been to any trainings. I know that sounds amazing, but it's one of those things where I literally learned everything I've known almost by myself. It's one of those things where I'm self-taught because, and this is just the truth, in the some of the jobs I've had, they didn't want to teach me because they didn't want me to learn what they already knew. So they wanted to protect their jobs. So I literally had to learn Adobe Audition by myself, for example. I had to learn to do all the audio settings by myself, and I had to learn to do all the production by myself.
Wow.
And that's one of those things where if they're not going to teach me, I'm going to do it on my own. And it took a lot of hard hours and a lot of learning and a lot of bad words said in the studio to figure it's like, why isn't this working? But I got it down, and it's to the point now where I can produce things on Adobe with my eyes closed. I can knock out a voiceover in no time and still sound professional and great and produce it and done. And that's part of that's one of my attributes as to why I'm doing this and why I'm doing well at it, is because I know how to do it my way. And I'm open to learning anything. I'm always open to learning. I'm reading stuff, and I'm always looking at stuff when I have the time. And I would be interested in learning, if there's ways to better, like you were saying, better ways to market yourself. That's what I would be interested in learning. I also would, of course, love to hear how other people do it. I'd love to see how other people have learned and how they do it, and maybe there's a shorter cut than I took to, basically learn from scratch, from zero, and trial and error, teaching myself. I'm thinking that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always I think with voiceover, I think first of all, I think it's amazing that you taught yourself everything, because that's great. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that could actually do that, and be successful at it, because especially with the editing and all of the production part of it that goes into it. I think a lot of people have trouble with the technical side of things. And so the setting that you're in a radio station and things like that obviously lends it, you know, you're able to actually be in that kind of environment, so you're able to probably teach yourself a little bit easier than somebody who's not in that setting. You know what I mean? But I'm
Right.
sure that you put a lot of hard hours in, like you said, a lot of hard hours, a lot of hard work and studying to figure out all of this stuff on your own. So that's that's really impressive, Mike, to see that you've done all of that without having someone help you. You know, that's really
Thanks.
cool.
And I also program the radio stations remotely from my home. I don't go to the radio station but a few times a year. It's one of the other things I do full time too. So that's another learning curve where I had to program the computers to place, the logs and everything else to run perfectly, and then the commercials, which I voice and record and produce a lot of those as well, the news, the sports, and all the other elements. So that's a whole other thing, which was another learning curve that I had to learn 95% of by myself. So
Wow.
yeah, that's a whole other thing. So that, yeah, it's rewarding in the end. It's rewarding now because I know how to do it. And instead of a day taking, when something would take 6 hours to do, now it takes 2.5, which is great because now I can fit more things in during the day. Now I can do an audiobook, for example, that I would never have time to do 5, 6 years ago, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, audiobooks are huge right now. Like I feel like they're gaining in popularity, and I think that so many people are interested in doing them because in narrating them because they can, I mean, they obviously they have deadlines they have to meet and things like that, but
Sure.
if you like reading and you're reasonably good at acting, it's there, depending on the type of audiobook, obviously. Like I don't know if you're reading like a math textbook or something like that, if you have to like really be a very good actor to do that. But I don't know. I mean, audiobooks are not really my thing, so I don't have a lot of experience with them, but I'm sure you
You
have to.
do. You do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You do actually have to be an actor, so to speak. Especially, I think I've done 42 actually. So there's
Wow.
some smaller ones, a few big ones too, but a lot of small. I started off doing little ones, like less than an hour, sometimes even just a half hour worth of poetry, for example, which was just fun. Or I've done, like instructional how to invest audiobooks. And you have to, because if you do it like you're narrating a film strip from the 50s, people are going to be like, oh, 10 minutes, I'm out of here, or not even 10
Yeah,
minutes. So
exactly.
you have to do those. They want you to talk like I'm talking to you right now. They don't want to hear step A, press invest, step B. They don't want to hear that. They want to just
Yeah.
have conversational. And that's a big part. It's actually acting. And I think a lot of people miss that, in that you're an actor. You're not just doing the voiceover to place the monotone, boring voice over some video, or an audiobook. You need to grab these people. And
Right.
that's acting. That's just the way it is. That's the truth.
Right. So
Yeah.
the two go hand in hand, but like the two things combined have to work together. But you're right. In the end, you have to be a good actor because whatever type of voiceover it is that you're trying to do, the better actor is going to get the job over the person who has just a great voice, you know?
And you have to give people options too. I always think that if you give people a couple of options instead of the one audition, if you give people a short snippet of, say, 3 different styles, and then they can say, A is okay, B is better, but C, I really liked how you were a real person, or something. I like to do over deliver, and then that way that gives the producer or the writer more choices of you, and they can say, they don't just have the one choice, because that way I think you'll get more jobs that way. And I've gotten more jobs that way, saying, wow, I've never received more than one audition from the same person. And
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the things that I really pride myself in doing, is over delivering up front. That way they'll say, this guy really wants this. This person really wants this. They like what I'm doing and they want to work with me. To me, that's what that shows. And going back to your point about the audiobooks, you have to fall somewhere between a real person and the game show host with some of
Right.
these narrations. I've done a lot of recipe books, and those, obviously, if you start acting cheesy, they're going to be like, this guy's weird. So, you can't make cutting up, butternut squash that exciting. I mean,
Right.
1/4 cup butternut squash, yay! okay. You just do the recipe, you read it, and you're interested, but not overexcited and not boring. So it's hard to describe, but easy to do once you look at it and go, oh, okay, I can do this.
Okay, so what have you learned in the past few years of your career that you can share with us that have been valuable lessons?
I think one of the biggest things I learned is when I really jumped back into voiceover full time about 6 years ago. I mean, really head on. This is going to be my other full time career on top of radio. Is that you're giving somebody's dream a voice, and I think once you, even if it's a simple explainer video about talking about some app or something that you personally have no interest in, this is somebody's dream, and this is what they want to bring this out to the world. I've done a ton of, Indiegogo, Kickstarter videos, and this is launching somebody's dream and putting it, giving it life and giving it a voice. And if you remember that in the back of your head every time you do an audition and every time you do a script, that'll get you so much further with your talent, and that'll bring out the inner voice that you have, that you can show people and let them hear what your interpretation of their dream is. And I've had so many people say, I can't believe that I found you, because I've always wanted a voice like yours, but I just never knew how to find something like that. And you listened to what I said and you followed my directions and you gave me things and options that I never even knew I had. So that's kind of what I think that's kind of going to help any voice actor or any voiceover artist go a long, long way, is to just remember these people, this is some person's dream, whether they wrote a book, whether they are making a Kickstarter campaign or just making a simple video. This is somebody's dream, and you're giving them part of that dream that they couldn't do themselves.
Yeah, definitely. It's really fun to have the opportunity to work with like animators who are either kind of new and starting out, or to, either students or people, like I said, who are just starting out, just getting out of school. Um, and I've had the chance to work with some animators in the past who are like, hey, I need a voice for this character. I really don't have, a big budget for this because I'm just out of school, but I'd love to have your voice with it, and those are good opportunities for people who are like, oh, I really want to do, cartoon voiceover. Those are the people to like reach out to and say, hey, let me voice
Hmm.
this character for you. And like you said, they're making someone's, part of their dream come true by putting a voice to their character, whatever it's for, whether it's a radio commercial, whether it's an animated show, whether it's anime or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that's really cool.
And
That's
you're
a good
bilingual, so that's
feeling.
that's a huge, huge, giant help.
It is definitely. It's funny because I haven't booked that much French work. I probably could book a lot more if I just did a French demo and had that up there, so people could
Mhm.
actually hear that I speak French fluently. But it's in the goals. It's in the goals for
See, goals. That's
2019.
one of your
So
goals,
yeah,
right?
it's one of my goals. Yeah. So yeah, definitely watch for that. Um, so those are my goals. What are a few goals that you've set for yourself for the next few months, and how do you plan to go about accomplishing them? You said doing more voiceover work with poetry and things like that. What else do you have?
Well, like I said, yeah, poetry and some more audiobooks. I'd like to do that, get back into that, and really, I'm open to literally any kind of voiceover genre. I won't say no to anything. I've done political ads for both sides, all sides, different sides. It doesn't make a difference to me because that kind of stuff, again, that's somebody's vision and that's what somebody wants to portray, and that's fine. And I'm okay with doing that. I'd love to do, more characters, animation characters. I have done a couple of, a few book trailers recently that for children's books, which is so much fun. I'd love to do children's books. That would be great. And there's not a lot of male narrated children's books that I've seen lately. There's mostly female, which is great, but there's not a lot of male. So I think there's room for that. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's it. I just want to keep expanding what I'm already doing, and it would be a lot more fun to do, some animation characters. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we tend to live in a negative world, that I'm all about
Hmm.
positivity when it comes to social media and life in general, or at least I try to be. And you seem to be totally on board with the positivity train. What are some things that you use in your own life to stay positive and not let yourself fall into that negative way of thinking?
I think it starts with stuff outside of the studio, and it's easier said than done. But if you can make yourself happy, if you do things in life that you love to do, my wife and I do things that we love to do every single day. So that's a big part of being happy. And and that you could bring that into the studio too. That's part of life when you can say, okay, uh, you need to find, and whether you have a friend or a spouse or loved ones or family members that are supportive of you, and surround yourself with people that actually share your vision. My parents, when I was young and did this, first they didn't believe me, but then when I actually showed them my first real paycheck at the radio station, I said, I'm actually working. Look, this is a real job. I'm not making it up. Oh yeah, you're 17. You're just telling stories so we won't worry. And no, here's a real job. So, and they were like, go for it. They were great. And if you have people that surround you that are supportive of you and don't step on your dream, that's going to go a long way. And you can find your positive energy from within, and just know that there's always going to be somebody out there to shoot you down. I've had people on Twitter, luckily not recently, but I've had people, saying, nasty things to me, and, you're this, you're that, and you're terrible and whatever. It's like, I'm not. I know I'm not. So it's okay. It
Yeah,
doesn't bother me. So mute, blocked, you're gone. I don't want to hear from you.
yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
that's
I
all.
think it's I think when it comes to the world of social media, it is really important to kind of set your standards to what they're going to be, and just not, because especially on Twitter, unless you make your account private, which I don't recommend doing unless
Mhm.
you really want to limit who can follow you. It's just that you do kind of have to routinely go through and clean up who is who am I following, who's following me, and who do I need to potentially block? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there are just like I always tell people when they ask me about social media, because I do spend a lot of time on social media. I spend probably way too much time on social media.
Well, we
But
all do.
the thing is, yeah, but the thing is like I go through routinely and just whoops, I go through routinely and just I just I just clean it up a little bit. I just
Mhm.
say, okay, are you a voice actor? Are you in the entertainment industry? Is there a reason why I should follow you back? If none of those reasons are on my list of why I should have them follow me or why I should follow them, then I just don't. It's not necessarily that I'm going to block someone from following me. It's just that I might not follow them back if it's not somebody who I feel like is really important to what I'm trying to keep really focused. So
Right.
like I think it's important for people to know on social media, like stay focused. What's your goal on each platform? On Twitter, what's your goal? On Instagram, what's your goal? Instagram in particular is like so huge right now. So that's something you should think
Hmm.
about, Mike, is getting on Instagram because it's a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of time. It takes so
Yeah.
much time. Like, and I don't have a big following on Instagram, but the thing that I find so interesting is experimenting with my business account and like what kind of, you got to figure out, just like you do on Twitter, what time are people looking at my post,
Right.
and when is the most ideal time for me to post? And what kind of pictures am I going to post? Because they have to be attractive pictures, but they also have to be super focused. Like, it can't just be like if you're going to have a business account and it's going to be about voiceover, you can't have your puppy in the middle of your post
Yeah.
unless your puppy is like with a little bubble saying like, hey, go to, this conference or whatever. Like you can make it work, but you know what I mean? Like
Oh
people don't
yeah.
want to see random stuff. It has to be super focused. And I think that sometimes, and I've said this in like multiple episodes of our show, is that people don't focus. What they end up doing is they just put random stuff. And
Mhm.
I made that mistake at the beginning of my Instagram career in that I would be like, okay, I'm going to put a picture of my kids or I'm going to put a picture of my puppy. And like on
Mhm.
my personal account, that's one thing. But on a business account, it shouldn't be your personal family stuff. It should be just focused on business, focused on, whatever your business is for, voiceover probably, and
Mhm.
then, whatever else you stand for as a person, as a company, what do you believe in? So my thing is all about, like we talked about earlier, positivity, like positive vibes, like just no matter what is happening in your life, whatever negative kind of stuff has happened, how do you push through that
Mhm.
and get to the other side of it? Because it's a constant battle for me. Like there's always stuff that I feel like, from my past or whatever mistakes I've made in my life, I'm trying to like push forward and move forward and make better choices and improve things. And I think a lot of people are going through the same thing. So that's kind of how I've made, my connection there is tying that into my company of Mid Atlantic Voiceover and saying, okay, yeah, this is what we're about. This is our conference, this is our
Mhm.
event. It's all about voiceover, it's all about learning, it's all about this. But also, here's what else we stand for, this positive side of it. Like, how are you going to take whatever negative is happening in your life and flip it around, you
Right,
know?
right.
So, yeah, but I think that social media, you have to be really careful on it. That's just
Mhm.
something that people, it can drag you down or it can lift you up, and you got to take the upside.
And there's so many supportive voiceover people, and you know who you are on Twitter High, that are always so cool and so extra great, and we support them as well. And when they say, "I just did this incredible project," and we throw up a like and a retweet, and that's part of what keeps us going too. And there's so many, there really are. I'm surprised at how many great people there are out there. Out of the three jerks out there, there's hundreds of people that are awesome, which is great.
Yeah, there really are. There's so many, and it's just about finding those people and then kind of like, they say like your vibe attracts your tribe, right? That's
Right.
that people put on. So let's tie these two questions into one. What are
Okay.
some of your biggest accomplishments in your career? What have some of your biggest accomplishments and some of your biggest obstacles in your career been so far? We'll kind of tie it into one to cover at the same time.
Well, the accomplishments for the radio stuff I've kind of gone over, and that was just a fun thing. For voice, on the voiceover side, I'm some of the big. I've done. I can't even tell you how many thousands of voiceovers. So I don't know. I don't have a number. That's just how many I've done.
Yeah.
I'm the voice of the Bayou Shuttle Normandy tour onboard audio system. So whenever you're touring Normandy, it's the biggest tour in Normandy, I think. And whenever they make a stop, and in between the stops, they do there's audio and video presentations, and I'm voicing over what happened at this location and what's upcoming in the next location. So you'll get to hear me. I would love to go and hear that. I'm sure my wife would be bored of going to hear that. I hear him every day. I've heard him do all these, but that's cool. I've done, like I said, over 40 audiobooks, ESL stuff, DJ drops. There's an online engineering educational channel that I worked with up until last year that's got, and they still get views every day. It's 60 million views for the videos I've voiced for them. One of them's got 18 million views. It's an educational voiceover about how a manual transmission works, on hold messages for AT&T budget van lines. And I did an EDM song a couple of years ago, which was produced, which is a lot. I'd love to do more. That's something I'd love to do more of. I'd love to do more, get sampled for EDM songs. So that would be incredibly fun. And DJ drops. I love doing those too. Those are great.
Cool. Tell us what is that? Like what's an EM?
Well, an EDM is a dance music. EDM music is electronic dance music, and it's incredibly
Oh,
popular
okay.
these days. And I'm a big kid at heart, and when I DJ'd in the club, that's the kind of music I played, and I still love it today. And uh, I do a lot of DJ drops for EDM DJs, and sample my voice and play with the production and stretch it and expand it and put echo and reverb and all this other stuff on it, and playing with
Oh,
the voice.
cool.
And that's so much fun. And then the sample I did for a song, it was about a giant fish. It was a Goliath. It's called Goliath Grouper. So it's silly, but it's so much fun. And it's just like me going, the biggest fish, or whatever I said. It was hilarious.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, so I'd love to do more of that. I would do that every single day forever if I could just have my voice sampled. I would. be in heaven. That would be great.
Cool. Yeah.
And obstacles. I think I touched on it a little before, but I'll expand on it a little bit more. It's just it's all of you're dealing with people from all over the world now. It's not just like the old days where you used to just go into the local studio and you're one on one with a person face to face, and you're saying, "Okay, Jerry, the producer wants me to do it this way. He'll tell me over the headphones to do it again." And you're dealing with potential language barriers, culture barriers. Especially you that you're bilingual. You're dealing with, are they French Canadian, are they from France, you don't know what, it's two different things. It's not just blanket French, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You have to deal with a whole lot of people that may be super blunt and not know they're insulting you. You have to also be willing to give a little extra to the people that they even may say, can you help me punch up my script? And that's not a bad thing, because that'll make not only less work for you in the long run, but you're also helping them get to their goal faster. So you're mutually meeting them in the middle, and that's going to help you get a lot further. And they're going to remember that, like, some of the ESL stuff, English as a second language, educational stuff. They'll tell you, they'll send me a script of, Bob went to the store, and you're reading it to 3-year-old, or not 5-year-olds that are, learning English for the first time. You can't race through the script. And if the grammar's incorrect, that's kind of key. So if you see something incorrect, you got to tell them, sentence number 17, Bob is at the over store. Okay, that's not proper grammar, so I corrected
Right.
it for you. Is that okay?
Hmm.
And they'll thank you for it. And I've had clients do that a lot especially with the English as a second language stuff.
You know, and then I think you have to make a decision as an actor, like, am I going to do this, or are they going to work with me on the wording of this? Or if they're not willing to because they just want to keep it the way it is, am I willing to do a script that's not well written? And for me, if they're willing to work with me on it, then I'll consider it. But like, if it's just bad writing, then especially when it's, and this happens a lot in like cartoons and stuff, is
Mm-hmm.
just you get somebody random like trying to write a cartoon, and it's just like bad writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think at that point, as an actor, you just have to say, like, as much as I want to do this type of work, I also have to set standards for myself, and that I'm not gonna do a script that's either one, not the type of person that I am. It doesn't meet my, like, it doesn't represent the values that I have as a person or something like that. You know what I mean? Sometimes you get some weird stuff and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what is that?
Oh, it's
And
not a
then
hard.
other times, yeah, and then other times it's just badly written, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe we should like consider, you know, possibly rewriting this part. But then you also don't want to insult the person who's trying to write
Right.
it. So it's difficult, definitely difficult obstacle there.
Yeah, with I had a client that I worked with a couple of years back, and it was an animation thing, and I was really excited about it, and I did this, and then I did a retake, and then I did a retake, and I'm not kidding you, it was the 10th revision, and then I said, I don't think this is working out. I'm not the person you're looking for, because, and I said this in a nicer way, of course, but you really haven't landed on anything. I mean, this is the 10th revision, and this is a span of over almost 6 months. No offense, but they're never going to get there. I mean,
Yeah,
what they just constantly redoing lines, random lines, and it's like, and there's no end in sight. It's like they had no vision. It's like, well, the squirrel needs to say this. It's like, well, I did the squirrel 4 times. I mean, I don't know how many other ways I can do the squirrel. I've done it. I mean, you don't like the way I'm doing it, I guess, and I'm not the guy for your project, I don't think.
right. Or if you do, like, this has happened to me before, where you do a part and you're like, yeah, they're like, yes, we love your voice, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do the part, and then they're like, and then you hear the finished product, and they added all these voice effects to it, and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not really me anymore. That's like, you know, some other, like, it's my voice, but it's, you've got all these other things on top of it, so it kind of takes away the, I don't know. I guess I kind of like, sometimes I'm okay with it if they have to do a little bit of tweaking here and there, because sometimes my voice is really high pitched and they just like, I can't get as low as they want me to sometimes. But at the same time, I think they have to kind of communicate that with you. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
oh, are
yeah.
you okay if we put special effects on it? Sure, and if you're not okay with it, you have to be upfront about that because
Oh
otherwise it's
sure.
like when you hear the final product, you're like, wait, that's not me anymore. That's like your computer that you, you know, put this effect on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had people speed me up, slow me down, alter
Yeah.
me. I had an intro for a kids show that I did, and it sounded nothing like me. It was literally like not even. It's like it sounded like I was a lot older and like tipsy, and it's like they stretched and warped my voice, like it's soup to bits, and I'm like, what? I didn't even. I don't even remember. It was to the point where I didn't even remember doing it. It's like that is me, but not really.
That's funny. All right, Mike. Well, we have to wrap up. Hey, everybody. We actually ended up losing our call at the end, had some technical difficulties. So I want to thank Mike so much for joining us today on Live with Squacky. It was an absolute pleasure to have him on the show. And I hope you guys will follow him on Twitter. And I will put the link for his Twitter handle in the description of this video. Thanks again for joining us on Live with Squacky. It's season 2, episode 2, and we hope that you'll continue watching. And thanks to everyone for your support. And get out there and stay positive and make sure to work hard to accomplish your goals and dreams. Take care, everyone. Bye.